After several sessions of deep conversations and a shared commitment to making a positive impact, together we're establishing an organization to champion the needs and interests of our community. Our approach is multifaceted, aiming to connect our community with opportunities, resources, and skills, all through active participation. I am honored today to introduce you to Sunrise City Coconut Collective.
Okay, and we are back after our short break, and we welcome our guests back to the table. Anybody buy my vote ain't for sale shirt? Let's check it. Let's check it. Let's check it. You know. So you can make a statement during election time, right? Monet, you got what?
I got sage and lime. I got Johnny cake. I got pate. I got sage and lime. And I got my T-shirt. My vote is not for sale. All right. Prior to the program, yeah.
Okay. I ain't got mine yet, so I got to discuss this with my wife. You know?
Tammy and hook you up.
We're not yet. We have a different type of democracy at my home.
And you don't engage in nepotism.
You know what I mean? So I just thinking it's staying on the safe side. You know. Anyway, let's continue with our Q&A session, and actually, I would like to take it where we left off. And I believe Mr. Lee over there on this side has something he would like to say or a question he would like to ask. Right?
1 second, I'm sorry. Mr. Lee, I'm going to have to engage you. Here's this mic.
I have a question about
So I'll repeat the question. So how can the San Nicolas community benefit from a greater emphasis on civic education? So if we emphasize civic education more, how would we be able to benefit as a community from that?
I think we should do this more often and with our San Nicolas representatives in yearly or quarterly meetings in the barrios, because these people, our representatives, represent us in Parliament.
Okay.
Right? And it's not like we vote for them and they disappear. We have to hold them accountable and I tell them what is going on in the community, because they see what's going on in the community and just turn the blind eye and just go, no, in Parliament is in the office, like, okay, no. They have to be more proactive.
Okay.
And we have to address them.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else would like to comment on this question before we move on?
I would like to make a comment, or just to add on to what Ivo was saying. From the panelists, if anyone wants to interject as to how will we go about holding them accountable? How do we engage with that? But,
Okay. And this is a question to the panel.
One of the panelists,
All right. Who would like to take this? Which one of you?
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically, yes.
Well, the accountability is, of course, this is what you said you were going to do. I gave you my vote. You are now in Parliament, and we are 6 months down the line. What have you done? What steps have you taken to initiate, to implement the idea that you said that you're going to do? That is the accountability. And as Mr. Lee mentioned, at the level of the barrio, have meetings. You can even go to Parliament. You can speak to your representatives. You can hand in a petition. We have that right also laid down in the Constitution, het petitierecht in Dutch. And those are instruments to hold people accountable for what they said that they were going to do.
And I would like to add on that, Luciano, the part of what have you done, I would make it even more specific. What concrete steps have you taken? Who have you sat with? What was the outcome? And then to what are your plans moving forward? Because politicians, we all know, are good in marketing and selling us a product because we are the consumers, and we always have plans and we always have a futuro nos dilante, and oftentimes it's very like the lady say, kasteel in de lucht. But let's talk concrete facts. What did you do and who did you do it and what's the outcome and what's the next step moving forward? Just to add to what you said.
And maybe I can even add, I would say also, I heard people talk about the idea of Parlamento di Barrio. So where people would go back let's say, om de zoveel tijd go back to the barrios and the communities and share the latest developments and so forth. But in that is, I think what would be nice also though, if it's not only tied to political parties, so the members of parliament, for example, that they have general meetings in the community and that it's not tied to a political party. Because, for example, if a political party says, okay, I have a town hall meeting and it's a X color, that is also it perhaps maybe forms a barrier for someone actually going to that meeting. While if it's let's say, even though you have your color, but it's a parliamentary meeting from the barrio and all the representatives are there, and not only representing your constituent, because in the end, all of them have to work for the entire island. It's one island. So and that not only counts for the members of parliament, but also for the executive branch, for the ministers and so forth. Because the economic decisions that are made by the minister of, let's say, of finance or economy and so forth, it affects everyone. Right. It's not only, it doesn't finish at the brug, so it affects everyone. So I think something like that would maybe be an idea.
Okay. No, I love the idea of Parlamento di Barrio. It's a great way to engage the community and also teach people who are young and who aspire to become representatives of their communities. I think also we need to start with the children to be critical and to be okay with being critical. Because if you have that within you, if this is something that is in your subconscious mind, it's a habit of you to be critical, everyone agrees, it's okay to be critical, then no matter what, you're going to be critical, or you're going to criticize and hold your representative accountable for whatever, independent of if your job is at stake or not. But it's not something yet that is engraved in us, but hopefully one day it will be.
But it's also, let's say, inherent to being part of a small community. I think, the fact that we are part of a small community, that makes people beware. And as you mentioned yourself, kind of like afraid to voice their opinion on certain things.
Yeah, and I believe when we leave the country for a while and we learn other cultures, we learn other traditions, we come back and we get confronted back with the fact that, oh, wait a minute, you're not allowed to speak so loudly about a certain topic. It is confronterend, okay, but I think it's very important for us it's a very important skill to have. Yeah.
I agree.
Anyone?
So exactly to add to that, coincidentally, today I had a conversation with a policymaker from an international institution that is involved with some economic policy making on the island of Aruba. And what she said to me, I found was very interesting because she works a lot in other Caribbean islands, so it gives a really good perspective. And she said, what I miss on Aruba is where is civil society? And I was like, wow, because, other Caribbean islands obviously all have like constraints of smallness. So you would think it would be similar. But in her perspective, it seemed that the voice outside of government on policy matters is missing. And I think that is very important because obviously it ties into education as well. And it ties into how different groups of society are involved in these decisions. And economic policy is way too important to be left over to politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is something that needs to be worked on because indeed, from what I observe also, there seems to be at times some civic society organizations that pop up, but it's not consistent over time. These voices come and go, and I think a lot of it has to do with because we're so small and sometimes it gets taken personal, and then it's not something you can sustain in the long run, and that is a pity. So I really hope that we can elevate that level and that seriousness of being able to discuss these really serious things without it being taken personally.
Yeah, and also, so being critical doesn't mean that I am attacking your character. It means I am checking to see if the proposal that you made is in accordance with the reality, is factually, if it's being checked, or how this is going to affect everything. So these questions are important. These are critical questions. But when we see the discussions and the debates nowadays, it is not on the policy itself. It's on the character of the person, and that is so not important. Really, you need to check everything, every single thing, to see if whatever it is, the initiative that you have, the project that you have, if this is going to be okay for the people. I think, and that is an important skill to have. You need to be critical, and I encourage it in my circle of friends. I ask them questions and see if they are. I tell them, ask me questions and make me feel uncomfortable about whatever it is that I decided I'm going to do, so that I know that the decision that I make is going to be good for my future, and then, that is okay.
And then what I hear from you, Jermin, is two aspects: the fact of being a critical thinker, but also voicing your opinion and standing for what you believe in, no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we have a good bit of questions coming in via WhatsApp. And the first one is, I think anyone on the panel can take a shot at it. It says, why can the Dutch residing in the Dutch Caribbean vote for the Dutch parliament, and the local man cannot cast a vote for the Dutch parliament? That somehow has influence on our local governments.
Luciano, I think this is yours. This is a Luciano. Yeah.
Okay. Let me address that. Yes. Yes. So when we look at the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and as we may know, the structure of the Kingdom of the Netherlands is laid down in the Charter of the Kingdom, het Statuut voor het Koninkrijk der Nederlanden. When they were writing this document 70 years ago, a choice was made that Dutch citizens residing in the European part of the kingdom will vote for their parliament, and then the Dutch citizens residing then in Suriname and the Netherlands Antilles would vote for their own parliament. So these things needed to be separate. Thus, it's laid down in the Dutch law, in the Dutch electoral law, that you can vote for the Dutch parliament, but if you reside on one of the 6 Dutch islands, then you do not have this right to vote. It's an ongoing discussion, and I am seeing the discussion moving a bit where different institutions, different thinkers are saying, but the Dutch parliament also makes laws for our islands, laws of the kingdom, and thus we need to have a level of influence on the Dutch parliament and the composition of the Dutch parliament, thus giving us as well the right to vote for the Dutch parliament.
Interesting.
I know there's a follow-up question to that, right?
Okay.
But I have to stick to these right now, just because we're pressed for time. But after the session, I'm putting Luciano on the spot. You can have a drink with Luciano at the bar and get some stage lime and. All right, question number 2 is for Gregory or Jermin. It's on the identity and the cultural influences of traditional voting. Do you see this more in smaller communities or larger countries?
Okay. At least I could just go off of the studies that I've done, and you would think that these are things that only happen in smaller islands and so forth, smaller communities. But the fact is that it also appears in bigger countries and so forth. Because even if you have a big country, it's often subdivided in different, let's say, provincies, or and then you have gemeentes, and then those gemeentes you have dorpen as well. So you have, and when you go back to these particular, let's say, factions in society or these areas, you'll notice that you see the similar patterns, maybe not the same, but similar patterns that you see, for example, in let's say, in the Caribbean or in smaller societies. So, for example, if you take the United States, or maybe Holland in this case, as an example, maybe that's a better example. We have groups in the Netherlands that vote based on maybe a particular, let's say, cultural identity. So, for example, in particular areas in the Netherlands, you would get groups that would vote based on specific, let's say, political parties that are let's say, religious leaning, or they would have, for example, maybe conservative religious views and so forth. And they, in that particular area, and you can count it, you could see it on a map. Those they get most of the support from a particular area. Or some places, for example, where you have, let's say, a certain type of laborers working, living there. Let's say working in a factory and so forth, they would tend to go towards more a particular political party. So, and even that, and that's in a country with 17 million people. But you see the similar patterns, similar ideas back on small islands as well. It just manifests in a different way. I would say.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Definitely agree. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
This is a question for Luciano. It's about the comments from Rendell. Your vote is private, but is it? Isn't the government violating the privacy law by getting the list of all voters and where they are voting?
Okay. So, in the whole electoral system, we are trying to uphold a number of values. One of them is that the elections are free, and they're free, and it's a secret ballot, right? The other thing that we are trying to ensure it's that there's a level of transparency on what is going on. So this is a topic that always comes up every cycle, where the government, of course, that's the role of government, to compile the list, the registry of all of the voters. And then who is allowed to see this, right? Who's allowed? Is everyone allowed to get a copy? The law was changed. The law was changed this year in May, barring everyone to get the compilation of the registry of voters. Only the political parties, only the representatives of the political parties, they can request this document, and it will be given to them digitally. And then they have this registry with a number of data. So it's very specifically, the law says the name, the last name, the STEM district of the voter. So not everything is in the list. Okay. Let me see if I answered the question correctly. Isn't the government violating the privacy law by getting the list? Well, the government has the list. Most probably it's more handing over the list that may violate. And these changes that were made in May of this year is to ensure that the privacy of the voters is protected even more. Okay. But not limiting the transparency. We need to retain that level of transparency so we can know who is registered in in the registry. Yeah? So you yourself, you have the right as a citizen to say, can I have a look and see if I am registered in the system? Before May, you could check and see if your neighbor is registered as well. That we have eliminated. We have said, no, it's none of your business. If the neighbor wants to know if they're registered, let them do the check. Yeah. All right.
And Randall wanted to react on
absolutely.
add.
Because I think what's happening globally in the last couple of years is that seems to be an increasing interest in protecting data in general of citizens in all kinds of domains, and I think this is one of them. So these changes, I think, so if I understand it correctly, they basically limit it to only the politicians to obtain the complete data, which is exactly the people that you don't want to have the complete data. Sure. Yeah. So in that sense, you still have this I think this uncomfortable dynamics that it's still kind of like it enables what we talked about earlier. There is I think a difference that can be made, because I voted last year in the Netherlands, and there's a difference that you can vote in any stem bureau in your district. So in terms of that, compiling the list, you could have the same list. People can still see the list, or politicians, but already it makes it much more difficult, because now all of a sudden you have like maybe 10 stem bureaus that you could have been to. And technically it's possible, because even now in Aruba, if you go to the stem bureau, they do like the manual counting, but there's also a tablet, right? And then it's completely digital. You can verify it. So I think it's one of the things that maybe need to be thought about is, maybe this is a possible solution to make it less prone for this pseudo anonymity issue that you run into.
Interesting. Thank you, Tabby. Thank you, Rendell.
The question is, the public is confused to vote or is struggling about what to do. Is it because there are too many parties? And why does a small island like Aruba need or have so many parties?
Yeah. Who may respond to that?
You want to go for that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's the, remember I talked in the beginning of the coin with two sides, right? The right to vote and the right to run for office, in this case to run and become a member of parliament. So that right to run for office, we have regulated it. We have now a law regarding political parties. And the only hurdles that we have put into law is that the political party needs to be an association. It can not be a foundation, right? So you need to go through the struggle to set up a political party. Needs to be an association. You need to go and see a public notary to have this done. Secondly, what we've done in law, you need to have it registered with the Electoral Council, a Consejo Electoral. They're gonna check everything, and then they're gonna say you are allowed to participate in an election. And then going forward, as we saw in the past weeks, if you don't have any representatives in parliament, then you need to collect the votes. All of these are hurdles to ensure that we weed out those who are not serious about this. But it remains, that's what we stand for, it remains like a market. I'm going to go into the economics. It's a market, and everyone is allowed, meeting the legal requirements, to put up your stall and sell your ideas and your vision.
Right. Isn't it a consequence just of the fact that we have this voting system or party system in Aruba, which is based on the Dutch system, I suppose, right? If you compare it to, let's say, the American system, where they have like this two-party system, you would think it makes it easier. Although I think what we see in recent years is that it actually confuses people even more, right? But bringing it back to Aruba isn't just a consequence of, there's so many parties, just a consequence of the system that we have here.
Well, the American system and the British system, they are not by law two-party system. They're not by law two-party. The other parties as well. However, given the fact that they use a system of majority within the districts, over the years, it has forced the existence of, let's say, two major parties, but it's not written in law. Okay, it's not written in law.
But I'm curious to know. The Aruban community is a very young community. We're a young country, and we're not even actually a state. But and we've only started elections since 1986, or was it 19? Yes, 19.
The first election was in the status apartheid in November 1985.
1985.
Atlas country. Prior to that, we used to vote too, but that was for
Nederlandse Antilles.
And the Consejo Insular.
Yeah, and so I think and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we as a whole, we don't have enough experience yet to understand that the power is in unity. I think, and that's why we form different parties. Whenever we have one disagreement, we go like, no, we disagree on this part, and so okay, I need to start my own party. Whereas if we have more experience, we know, okay, let's find consensus and find ways to get together and just stay within a party, but just let's work towards compromise. I don't know if you could say something about it.
I don't know. I think you can look at it from different perspectives, in the sense that look, you can form a party based on different reasons, and there's a particular vision, and if you feel that perhaps maybe we want to be a party focused on a particular cause, so let's say an environmental cause, or we want to speak for, let's say, social issues, or we want to be focused more on economic opportunity and so forth. You have, and if you feel that on your island, in your country, that there's not enough voice or representation in that area, that's also perhaps maybe one of the reasons why particular parties start. So, for example, let's say, to give an example, in the Netherlands, you would have religious leaning parties, let's say more on the conservative side. If I'm not mistaken, the SGP would be a good example thereof. But you also have parties that maybe will be more left-leaning, and that started originally as a environmental party. So you would have a GroenLinks, for example, and you would have then maybe a Labour parties more towards the left, and you'd have more of the Christian Democrats and so forth, center-right, and the other parties as well. So, but to say, if you see that system, they're focused mostly on particular causes, and they have emanated from particular groups of people in society, speaking on and looking for representation for a particular faction.
Well, my issue with that is how are you going to get enough votes to
exactly? That is in a country, for example, with 17 million people. No, on an island with I don't know, 100 something thousand.
120.
Is there enough space to have let's say so many parties speaking on different issues and so forth? Or you can have maybe one party that has different factions within the party that some are focused on.
Because that's an organization. An organization has representatives of different areas, walks of lives, and you as a whole country, organization represent a particular group in your country.
Yeah.
And so.
And then
I'm curious
leave the answer and then we move on.
I think it's a really interesting question because it kind of, you feel that this confusion, right? I think that the word confusion was used, and I understand it because I feel it also myself. And just to give you an example, like I remember after an election that somebody posted a post, and this was an election that, obviously one of the, either MEP or AVP got the most votes. And it's like, and the person was saying, "Thank God I voted for this party because it was the winner." And I was like, okay, so how does that work? Because I don't approach my voting like that, right? To kind of like guess who's going to be the winner. But it does reveal that there is some strategy to it as well, because you can either be a vote that focuses on what your values are. It's like, okay, I'm voting for my values. Or you can be a voter that's strategic and saying like, how does my vote have the biggest chance of influencing policy in the future? And these are two different things. And I think a good example is the system with the parties that are joining new. So of course we have a system that you have to get a certain number of votes or of signatures, so you can participate. And what you see is some parties don't achieve this level of votes in the actual election, meaning that this endorsement doesn't translate into votes. And then you have of the kiesdeler issue, which is obviously quite a bit of a constraint because it has to be 1/21 of the total votes, which is a pretty high threshold. So if you're a person that's really based on your values and a new party starts up, it's like, I really identified with this party. Do I vote with my heart, or do I want to have a chance to influence the results?
Your heart or your mind?
Yeah, so you're kind of like caught in between. I don't have a solution for it, but I think that's that's an issue that you have to also think.
Take into account, yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the interest of time, I'd like to move on to the following question, because there's a lot that we could be discussing and uitgepluist, but absolutely. Mayang Tachaluna.
It's the last question. Would you explain the consequences if you don't cast your vote, and the consequences of making your vote invalid?
Oh, good one.
Let's read your vote. All right. So let's come to the let me start with the invalid vote, right? So the law is very specific on how you need to cast your vote, right? If you go in, you have your stem billet, and you put your name on the stem billet, invalid. Because it violates the whole notion that it is secret, right? The law is very specific on this. And then, whether you're counting the votes, election night, then it goes on the stapel of votes that are invalid. And they're also registered as invalid votes, meaning they do not count. They do not count when making the calculation for the kiesdeler, because they're invalid. They don't count. That is one. If you do not vote, you don't show up, then your vote does not count in the whole process because you were not there. So it influences the calculation, of course, of the kiesdeler. The more people who go to vote, then, and the votes are valid votes, then of course the kiesdeler goes up. I'm looking at, right? Yes? Okay, I'm on the right track. Yes? I walked with some numbers as well. So the higher the turnout, the kiesdeler goes up. The lower the turnout, then of course the kiesdeler goes down. So it has consequences for acquiring seats in parliament for the parties, of course, right? So the higher the threshold is, it becomes more difficult for smaller parties with smaller numbers to get one seat to cross over, right? Because as we know, if you do not obtain one fixed seat, one regular seat, you cannot obtain a recital. You need to pass that threshold as well. So there are many thresholds in the process. Just in the interest of setting the scene, for instance, looking at the numbers, the percentage of participation in elections gone by. So looking at 2021, 83.23% of the electorate, those who had the right to vote, made use of their vote. 83.23. The election before that, we're looking at 82.9. So we're always around here, 84.5, 85.32. So the level of participation in Aruba is really, really high.
Yeah.
In some countries, you get 60% of the people show up. 62% of the people show up. In our case, it's really high.
So how do you explain that? So yeah,
Very good question. Maybe someone else would want to.
well, I don't know.
I do maybe have a contrarian view to this question.
Sure.
And it's again, it comes to rationality on a personal level versus rationality on a collective level. Because if you don't vote, it's also known as a bit of the free rider problem, because you ride along with the rest. And in my rational way of looking at it, I would rather have you not vote if you don't know for sure who you're voting for, and ride with the rest that do vote, than to actually cast your vote in a way that doesn't help the collective.
All right.
Those are my personal views, but it's again, it comes down to how do you view rationality.
Does it also? Sorry, go on.
No, I think you are a follow-up question. I just wanted to find out from about maybe when you're finished, if this percentage is actually on the highest in the Dutch in the kingdom, actually the kingdom of the Netherlands. Lucian.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the way highest, but it's I haven't seen these numbers in the Netherlands or Curacao. These high numbers.
So that says something about the Arubans. Yeah, their engagement with in the electoral system. Yeah, in the
Very much.
Yeah.
Jermin.
Yeah. So my question was, the higher the kiesdeler, the more difficult it is for any parties to get their zetel. Yeah, but also that means the lesser restzetel, also, right? No.
Mathematically, not necessarily.
We need a mic. Or Luciano, no?
Who, Sonny? Yes, we need a mic on this side. A mic for Mike. It is on?
Yeah, is that? Hello?
Yeah, it's this.
Yeah, not necessarily. So, the higher the threshold, the kiesdeler, it mostly influences that first asiento. After that, the
first zetel.
No, the first hard seat, like we called it.
Yeah. Oh, right.
After that,
I get it. Yeah.
it doesn't really have much.
It doesn't matter. No. Yeah. Well, but because there's so many votes left. Toch?
Keep it. Okay, so for example, just a simple mathematical example. Let's say if the percentage is much higher and the kiesdeler is like 2,800 versus 2,400. It's much easier for a small party to get to 2,400 than 2,800. But we know the two traditional parties will hit 2,800 sowieso. So they will get that first asiento. So at the end of the day, when it comes to restzetels, they will see more benefit than a small party.
Always. Yeah.
Okay. And that might be a good moment, I think, for us to move on to the live part, right?
The live.
Yes.
If there's one live question that is like a brandende vraag that you would like answered prior to leaving tonight, please raise your hand and Sunny or Tabitha will pass and give you the mic to ask the question.
Remember, this is a safe environment.
There's one question, our last question for the night.
So I would just like to follow up on that same question. So how does this actually work, right? This is it might sound a little, how do you say? How can I put this? Just like all you guys are bachelors in all your schooling. I have a bachelor's in keeping it real, right? All right. So I need someone to explain to me. I'm a first-time voter, so I need someone to explain to me.
In Aruba.
In Aruba, yeah. So someone to explain to me how does this actually work. So I need numbers. For example, if I'm interested in voting for BB. And is it worth it voting for a smaller party, knowing the bigger parties? And so I need numbers to how this actually works. If y'all understand what it is.
But what do you mean with what is it?
So,
What is
for
it?
example,
What do you mean with it?
how many votes do a smaller party need to be
To vote in
So,
parliament.
so
So we'll only know that when the election is over.
So-
When the election is over, we will have a kiesdeler and we actually.
But maybe I think we should just go back. It's just maybe I don't know if someone can explain what a kiesdeler is, because we throw these terms are they be thrown around, but we need to know. Yeah, what is a kiesdeler?
Yeah. So what we do, every vote counts. So election night, we count all of the votes. So we count all of the votes, and we divide the number of votes, valid votes. We divide that by 21 seats, because there are 21 seats in Parliament. This gives us a number that we call in Dutch the kiesdeler. What it represents is a threshold of how many votes each party needs to get to meet this threshold. To give you an idea, in 2021, this famous kiesdeler was 2,791 votes, meaning each party needs to get at least 2,791 votes to get one seat in Parliament. That's your threshold. If you had 2,600, then you did not meet the threshold in 2021, and then as a political party, you're out. You're out. So the votes that were cast for you, they count in the totality, but you do not get a seat because you do not meet this threshold. So election night, we are going to do the very same because it's anchored in the law. We're going to see how many valid votes were cast in, and we divide that by 21, and then we work with that number to go party by party by party to see if they meet at least this threshold. Then you know you're in, and then see, can you double it? Can you triple it? And that's how we go on.
So it really speaks to how many people believe in the vision that you have, how many followers you have to carry, to have this one person carry these visions that you agree with.
Of how many pretty people
We have for journalists.
I wanted to add something to 45 what I was explaining, so Rendell understands what I'm saying too. There are parties, for example, in the past that had less than 100 votes to get to the first asiento, and they stayed out, while other organizations had 500-600 to get the recito, and they were able to achieve that recito. So that's why I was very emphatic on the higher it is mathematically to get to that threshold, that smaller party will suffer more, because if they can't lock in that first asiento, it will not have any benefits of the recetas.
Okay. So absolutely. So that's the first step, and what Luciano was also explaining gives you all the zetas that were kind of like earned based on this threshold, right? Which is really hard, because indeed, I think specifically, I remember MPR, it was like 40 votes per, and they were just under it, and then basically all the votes that you trusted MPR, it was lost. And it doesn't have to necessarily be this way, because there are other countries that have systems that try to account for this as well and say like, okay, with the recetos, which is like the seats that weren't earned hard by the voters, there's maybe a different way of calculating. Let's say like, okay, we look at the one that was closest to this threshold, still they deserve to get seat, and you basically assign the seat. So there's a difference to that. And then the way that we calculate the rest data is that first, like was explained, so all the votes are or all the seats are given that were earned, and then after that, basically only the ones participating that have already seats can get a rest data. So they basically count the number of votes divided by the number of seats that the party got plus one seat, which is like the next seat. And then they see which ratio of which party was the highest, and then that one gets a rest data. And then they repeat that process maybe 3 times, 4 times, 5 times until all seats are given away. So what I was thinking about when you were saying is that once that you reach this threshold that you are participating, and I think that's really interesting, because now we are in a position that that there are more parties that potentially could achieve this threshold, because in the last election that was the case. You had Raiz, you had MAS, you had Action that basically reached that threshold. Then it becomes a different game, because then for the rest haters, they are in a better seat to get the rest hater than MAP and AVP.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it depends how the game is playing.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Rendell. I'm going to cut you short just for a little bit, right? Do we have one last question? Okay, a quick question.
Sorry.
And a quick.
One was, I think what he meant was, how can I influence? So either do I make my vote invalid, or do I not vote so the smaller parties would have a better chance? Because if I'm going to vote for a smaller party and like it's going to be a rest and it's going to go to the bigger ones, how do I then just not vote, or do I make it invalid? I think that's what he meant. That's what I was definitely thinking about.
Okay. Quick answer.
Well, you know, this is a kind of like common sense answer I will give. Why make the effort of getting up, taking your Volker card, getting in your car, driving down, standing in line with to cast an invalid vote, right? So make the effort to cast a valid vote, right? That's one. Secondly, of course, look, it's a market. I'm coming back to the analogy of a market. The party may be small, maybe they just started, but of course by voting, the party can go from 0 to 2 to 5 to 10 to 15. I mean, where we look at basically all parties, you look at first Beep. In the history of Aruba, this is before the status aparte, before 1986. There was a certain party that grew at a given moment, got 15 of the seats in the then Island Council, 15 of 21. And then you can have a rise, but there's also the other side. There's also a decline, that the party at a given moment had 0 seats.
Yeah.
You know?
All right.
So it's the market. It's the voters saying, I trust you, can cause a party to grow.
But also people want to protest. I know certain people want to make it known that they are protesting.
Sure.
Against every single party, against every single candidate that is postulating themselves as a politician,
Sure.
And so it is a worthwhile effort to get into the car and go cast my invalid vote.
Exactly.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. Is that okay? Thank you very much, Jermin. And I'm going to end now. We have to end now. Sorry. I wish we could continue for longer, but I think we can just continue the discussion after, when we come off camera. Right, and before we do this, we end tonight, I would like to ask our panelists, for your final thoughts on the different topics that we discussed tonight. Any wise words that you would like to leave us with tonight?
And then we're narrowing it down to 90 seconds.
Alrighty.
Nope.
Let's put the timer.
No pressure.
Your final words, gentlemen.
Gregory. No, I think I just want to just thank everyone, the organization for having us. I think it was of course an honor and also a pleasure to be here. And I think this is a very important step in actually what we call that, so the civic engagement, civic education. And hopefully we can have more of these conversations. These conversations are extremely important, and that we can have really open dialogue and ask all types of questions as to, okay, how does it work, and how do we carry out our influence, or how does it work for us to be able to elect the best persons, the representatives possible to be able to manage the island best. At the end of the day, it's just like a organization. You have your managers, and you want the best qualified people to be able to manage the country the best way possible, not only for ourselves but for the future generations as well.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Yes, Luciano.
We have a current system that once upon a time we chose this system and we laid it down in law. Is it a perfect system? No. Do ideas about the system change? Yes. The Americans, when writing their new constitution, said, we want to make the union more perfect. And I believe it's a responsibility of all of us living in Aruba in this democratic system to make the system more perfect.
Thank you. That's that.
Nice.
Rendell.
There is so much more to add, but I think that the fact that people are here and asking questions and people are watching this already shows that they are, interested in the electoral process. And I think that's the first step, because it is important. And from all the considerations, I think it's I feel most with the expressive part of voting, really showing the endorsement to candidates. So going back to the question, I think that even if that party does not reach a seat, the number of votes show that their values align with yours. And I think in the end, the values that you hold should be the ones that, that should make your vote valid.
Thank you, Rendell.
Jermin?
Tonight I learned San Nicolas counts for 5 seats in the parliament.
Don't forget,
don't play nobody.
Arriba Libras. And I think that is huge. I walk around in San Nicolas, I go to the beaches in San Nicolas, and I do not see the same things in San Nicolas that I see in Oranjestad and that I see in North. I need to see that in San Nicolas, and so I think it is so important for us to cast our vote as people from San Nicolas and to make our voices heard and to be active and to make sure that we choose for the greater good and that we choose representatives that truly are active in our community and do not come here just to take pictures when they have projects in San Nicolas. San Nicolas need to be a barrio that is working.
Exactly.
We need the basic things. When I walk outside, I need the stupi to be matches.
Exactly.
Okay?
Well said.
I need, when I come out of my house, I want to be able to just go and jog and not have the dogs come and bark the whole time and attack me. These are basic needs. It's not a difficult thing to change in San Nicolas. We need to choose the representatives that understand this. Okay? Your vote is important. Please go cast it.
All right.
Then amazing.
Thank you, gentlemen. And we're going to close this segment and actually this conversation at the table with one final clip.
All right, so I have this t-shirt on. My vote is not for sale. What does that mean to you?
Nice shirt, by the way. Nice shirt. I'm looking to get one myself. For me, it speaks for itself. People try to buy votes in any way that they can. They offer you this, they offer you that. For anybody who's planning on doing that, just remember, if you go that route, it might not last forever. So I will go back again and say, know who you're voting for, know what you are voting for, and as the shirt say, Don't let it be for sale.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Wow. What a night. Give yourselves a round of applause. We would really love to thank our guests, our speakers, our panelists, our guest speaker, our moderators. Thank you very much. It is a wonderful... You have captured our attention and made sure that we were engaged in this conversation. That is not an easy conversation to have. And I pray that this is not the last, but more will come, more conversations like these, especially for us on this side of the bridge. As Jermaine said, I learned that too. 5 seats, pariba di brug, which is very important. That's why it's important for us to really cast our vote and participate actively in the process. It's very important for us. So we want to thank you very much once again. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for sticking it out with us. We went way over time, but we thank you for being here. We want to thank our sponsor, Sede Aruba, also for being part of this. Just give one more applause to them. We'd love to also thank our media team, our catering team, everyone who made this possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to really doing more of these topics. If you have any ideas for topics for At the Table, please feel free to send it to us and be part of what we're doing here in San Nicolas.
How do people get involved in SE3?
Thank you, Monique. It was such a good moderator.
Even after the third one, right?
You can get in touch with us, any one of our representatives. We do have, if you want to be part, talk to Miss Sulaika right here, and then she will give you the information that you need if you want to be a part of this movement. It's just started, but it's already moving, and we're grateful for that. So visit our Facebook page, visit our Instagram page, and this complete recording will be on YouTube, but we will put out snippets on social media. So it'll be all these weeks leading up to elections. Snippets will be put out because we can't put 3 hours.
No, bad idea. But what was the question she had?
What was the question?
Yeah.
No,
We threw her off, I think.
Yeah, because she was so disappointed of the lesson that I was. Please give her the airport up.
What I just meant to say is I honestly told you what
Luciano, Rendell, Greg.
Luciano is saying. However, the reason why I asked, and I think it's very important for some people, because unfortunately, I really saw that some bigger parties were using just that, about the kiss later, for them to manipulate. Because a smaller political party, the first they made it, because the bigger party said people.
Correct. The smaller one. Yeah. To go sign for them to be able to, and then they will probably not get the Zato, and they will use it. Yes, that is what theory that is definitely.
So I also have to them think sometimes make voting for what I really want to might not be as effective. I've made it either invalid or just not coming at all. That's my idea. Listen.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Makes us good.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for still sharing. Absolutely. That's it. If you want to get information on the complete process, there's a website that you can go on. It's er.awe-verkiezingen-2024. We'll put that link up too so that you can also, via our social media, so that you can also get all the information that you would need for that. It leaves me just to say thank you once again and see you at the next At the Table.